I grew up in a small country town in the United States. Think of just about any small town America story or movie you have seen, and that just about sums it up. Everyone knew each other, and you generally had a close-knit group of friends from kindergarten through the end of high school. My best friend Jeffrey drove a blue Ford Escort, the only one among our group of friends with a car at 16, so that made him both popular and the go-to guy whenever any of us needed to go anywhere. I was very lucky that Jeff liked me, because he took me home from school every day, even though he lived a long way away from my house. He just did it because he was nice. Each day after school, I would meet him at his assigned parking spot, and we would drive directly to the short stop, which was a convenience store about halfway to my house on the way from school. We would get a snack, a candy bar or a hot dog, something like that, and go on our way. The same cashier was there every day. Her name was Janice. She was a few years older than us, and had stayed in town instead of going to college. She was really nice. She also worked at the movie rental place in our town, and would give us free rentals. One day, our same routine happened, but for some reason Jeff did not go with me into the short stop. I remember him being moody and not really talkative. He reluctantly pulled into the short stop while I got out to get a hot dog. When I got into the short stop, Janice was not at the cash register, which was weird. I had never been there when she was not sitting there. I think she enjoyed our visits and always had a laugh with us, but this day, she wasn't by the register. I figured maybe she was in the back doing some other work. I did not think too much about it. I walked toward the back of the store, where the hot food was placed. If you remember those rolling heated hot dog machines where the hot dogs would just sit and spin. There was a soda fountain by the hot dog machine, and other things like napkins, straws, ketchup, and mustard. There was a young boy standing in front of this counter, facing the wall. He was not trying to get any food, and was standing completely still to my memory. He was just standing there, staring at the wall, not moving at all. He was wearing a red t-shirt, blue shorts, and no shoes. He had wavy brown hair and had a dark tanned complexion. He was perhaps about 8 to 10 years old. I walked toward him, as if to stand in line behind him, because I thought maybe he was thinking about what he wanted to eat. I stood there for a moment, and when he didn't move, got a bit closer, trying to give him a hint that I was waiting, and to make up his mind. Nothing. He did not move at all. After a second or two, I looked towards the cash register, and Janice was sitting there. Not talking, not smiling, not looking at me at all. She was just sitting at the cash register with a blank, empty face looking toward the back of the store. She always said hello to me. I would say she even looked forward to our stopping by, but she did not even acknowledge me, and I have no idea how she got back to her seat without me seeing her. If she had been in the back, she would have had to walk past me. The only other thing I can think of is that she was kneeling behind the counter when I walked in, and just never stood to greet me, which is very, very strange. I was still standing behind the boy, but had turned my head to look at Janice at the register. When I turned my head back, the boy was looking at me. The boy had completely black eyes, no white at all. No pupils, no irises. Solid black, as if someone had poured tar in his eyes and he had not wiped it out. He was not smiling, not moving toward me, not talking, and not making any expressions at all. He just stared at me. Otherwise, every other thing about him was like a normal kid. Needless to say, I was terrified. It startled me so much I started walking backwards toward the door. When I got to the register, I turned and basically ran out. I ran directly past Janice, and she did not say a word to me. She did not move. She just sat at the register as if she was frozen. I turned and looked back at the boy, and he continued staring at me all the way out the door. I jumped in the car and asked Jeff to take off as fast as he could. Again, he was in a bad mood that day, so he asked me why I did not get anything as if he was upset, and then just drove off. As we drove away, I could not see if the boy or Janice were still in the same state. I just tried to get it out of my mind. The next Monday, we went back to the shortstop. Both Jeff and I went in and saw Janice sitting behind the counter. She acted the same way she always did, friendly and funny, as if nothing had happened. I asked her what the deal was the week before with the weird black-eyed kid, and asked if she was okay because of the way she was acting. Here's the weird part. She acknowledged what had happened somewhat, but did not verify the event 100%. She just laughed and said something like, "Oh, it was nothing," and then changed the subject. I never brought it up again, nor have I seen the black-eyed boy again. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, so about 35 years ago, I was playing hide and seek with my little sister at our grandparents' house. I was in their basement and thought the old broken fridge would be a perfect place to hide. That fridge must have been from the 50s. That's my best guess. I crawled into the fridge. I can still remember how it smelled in there, like old plastic and some chemical I cannot name. The door latched shut, and I lay balled up in the dark, quite pleased with myself, thinking I had found the perfect hiding spot. After just a couple seconds in the fridge, I heard a voice tell me to start screaming and banging as loud as I could. I did as I was told, and my sister quickly found me and opened up the fridge door. I got out, and truly didn't realize how much danger I'd just been in, but immediately knew this wasn't a good hiding place, and I told my little sister to never go in there. A few days later, I remember telling my mom and grandma that I had hid in the fridge, but not about the voice, and their faces were panicked. That fridge was removed from the house shortly after. It wasn't until many years later that I realized that I could have died that day. Those old refrigerators could not be pushed open like the ones we have today, and there was only so much air inside. That is what really creeps me out. I'm extremely grateful for the voice that strongly told me to give away my hiding space. First time posting here. I had an event transpire last night that is a small paragraph in the story of my haunted house. To understand the story, it helps to understand the history of the property. Before my house was a house, it was a VFW club. To those that are unaware, it was a bar/clubhouse for veterans of foreign wars. The house is over 120 years old, and many people have passed through the doors over the decades. It seems likely that many tortured souls spent time there. There were probably soldiers, people that have done horrible things while fighting in our wars. I live in the USA, by the way. Some of my elderly neighbors talk to me about my house and its history when I'm out walking the dog. Some of them have even drank there, the real old neighbors. Paranormal experiences are a pretty common thing in this place, but this one is the most recent, and happened last night at around 11:30. I was laying in bed with my 2 cats. They were sleeping together at the end of the bed, and I was watching a movie on my tablet. The lights were on, so darkness did not obscure my vision. Here is where things get interesting. In a split second, both cats jolted themselves awake and began to fix their eyes on the doorway to the bathroom. I stop my movie and try to listen and observe. Keep in mind, both cats' eyes are perfectly fixed on the doorway. with gaze fixed on a central point in the middle/upper height of the doorway. I found this strange as there wasn't a sound to be heard. My first thought is they were tracking a fly or a bug. It is winter and cold right now, but I don't think I've seen a bug in months. That is because no bug was there. My vision is unusually good, and the lights were on. Nothing was there. At least, nothing I could see. At this point, I'm really trying to figure out what the fuck these two cats are looking at. They began to turn their heads horizontally, as if someone was walking out of the bathroom and toward the foot of my bed. While this was happening, their heads and eyes moved in sync with each other, as if the two cats' bodies were attached by gears. I knew it wasn't a fly at this point for certain. Anyone with a cat knows how a cat will move when trying to hunt a fly. They will look up, down, and in circles as a fly buzzes across the room. With their vision at the foot of the bed, they started to look up to me, as if someone was walking up towards me. My hair begins to raise on the back of my neck. Pins and needles radiate down my spine into my arms. All of my senses begin to hyper-focus. Yep, no bug, no buzzing sound, but something's clearly there. I can sense a presence of someone there, breathing. The air is cold and feels heavy. At or around this time, I realize I'm having a visit from one of the house's many ghosts. I used to be so much more scared of these kinds of occurrences, but now I just kind of accept it. If I get around to it, I will post more stories. Anyway, wide-eyed, the cats are staring at something right next to me. In perfect synchronization, their eyes slowly moved up, staring directly over my chest where I was laying. I can sense someone standing over me, looking down on me. This freaked me out. Loudly and out of reflex, I yell, "What the fuck?" For no reason, and without any input, the Alexa on my tablet said,
"Do you want to see something paranormal?"
Please remember this is still real life. There is no embellishment. There was no reason for my tablet to do this. It was also loud as shit. Now I'm very spooked. However, now I realize this thing, spirit, or whatever it is trying to communicate with me. I did not ask for Alexa, nor did I mention any keywords like ghost, haunted, etc. Out loud, I reply, "No thanks." The air in the room lifted. The cats settled back down. I tried to sleep. I got little. In summary, my two cats saw something that I could not. Whatever it was walked out of the bathroom, past the foot of my bed, made a 90-degree turn like a person walking, and stood over me. Then it tried to talk to me through my tablet. I used to be a cop a few years ago. Left to pursue some other career, but some things that happened to me during these times are stuck in my memory forever. I was based in western France, a small town near the sea, crowded in the summer but nearly empty for the rest of the year. In this town there's a famous hotel on the seaside, built in the 1920s and abandoned in the 70s because of inheritance problems. Every now and then we visit it while patrolling because local kids like to go there and play and spook themselves. As we pass by the hotel, I see that one of the windows on the first floor is wide open. There was no wind, and my superior was sure it was closed when we were patrolling the seaside in the afternoon. So my superior, my partner, and myself decided to head inside and make sure no kids were messing around. We entered the lobby and waited a moment to try and hear footsteps or voices. The hotel is not too big, but still a 3-story building. There was nothing, so we decided to proceed further and climb up the stairs. On the first floor, I reached the open window and shut it. We were going to resume our patrol, but we stopped right on the spot, hearing voices and footsteps from the second floor. We kind of froze for a while because it wasn't kids' voices, but clearly a man and a woman talking. It was very unusual as we never came across anything else except for kids there. Maybe a few homeless people during the summer, but it was early November. We get to the second floor, still hearing the voices, but unable to determine where they were coming from. My superior orders me to stay near the stairs to catch anyone who would try to escape, while he and our other colleague inspect the rooms. Just as he turns into the corridor, we saw someone peeking from the first door on our left, 3 meters from us. We identify ourselves as the Gendarmerie, and my partners rush into the room. It was empty. There was nowhere to hide or escape. The door that we came from was the only one. There was nothing except a strong smell of cigarette, and there was no cigarette butt either. We stopped talking after that, just made sure the other rooms were empty, and we quickly left. We didn't report this officially, and didn't really talk about it to anyone else. I really want to go back there one day to try to sort it out, even if it is probably useless. My mother and uncles, when they were all kids, around 9 to 15, I think, played with the Ouija board. Now back then, when they were kids, it was advertised as a fun game, and kids would get one for Christmas or their birthdays. They would go down into my grandparents' basement. I live at that same house now, and play it, thinking of it as some stupid game. One time when they were playing with it, a spirit or demon whose name was Annie started cussing my mother out, calling her a bitch or telling her to fuck off. But one thing is, they didn't take it seriously, so they didn't say goodbye or play it properly. My uncles were playing it by themselves one time and came running upstairs. They refused to tell anyone what happened or what the board said. They ran outside and threw it in a dumpster behind Burger King, thinking that's the last of it all. I think that made the spirits connected to the board mad, and the next day when my uncle was going to school, he looked behind the Burger King, and the entire dumpster was burned. Back in 2014, my parents were downstairs at my grandparents' house, and my dad walked outside and sat down. My mom came down a few minutes after him. When turning the corner after walking down the stairs, she saw some man sitting in a chair in the middle of the basement. He wore a black suit and had no face. She blinked and he was gone. After going outside with my dad, before she had the chance to say anything about the man, my dad told her he saw a man sitting there when he looked back, thinking it was her. They both saw the exact same ghost or entity that night. Fast forward to now. I live in my grandparents' house, the same one they played the board at years back, and the basement is surely haunted by something. When leaving my room a few months ago, I looked behind me and saw a figure of a little girl standing behind my bed. She didn't say anything. Then again, I ran before she could. Sometimes I hear things or see shadowy figures in the basement, but I try to ignore them. I still think this is all happening because of what my uncles and mother did over 40 years ago. I have a lot of experiences in this house. I might post more about them some other time. My encounter was 3 years ago, and it's still one I have trouble thinking or looking back on. A little background about me and my roommate in the story. We were both practicing Christians, so I do believe in the spiritual side, demons and such, but I had never had any encounters I deemed supernatural per se. That all changed for me 3 years ago. We were living in a small apartment at the time where me and my roommate, let's call him Joe from now on, lived. His girlfriend had just gotten back from a mission trip to Haiti and brought home a gift for him. It was a crudely carved wooden elephant that she was gifted from a Haitian child. This thing was freaking creepy. It just gave off an eerie vibe by looking at it. Clearly hand-carved with not the best craftsmanship. It was unsettling to look at. However, Joe, being a good boyfriend, graciously accepted the gift. I somewhat jokingly, but also seriously expressed how I did not like the mojo surrounding this thing. He basically explained he thought it was weird, but it was a gift, so he was going to keep it. And keep it in our room at that. Later that night, I received an unusual text from my neighbor who lived across the hall. We were friends but never really texted, so this struck me as odd when she asked, "Are you okay?" I was in the living room watching a movie at the time, so I replied, "Yeah, just relaxing, watching TV." She replies, "Oh, just pulled in and thought I saw you in your room pacing back and forth." My heart dropped. I was home alone at the time. I immediately ran into the room to find nothing but stillness. I glanced at the wooden carved monstrosity, which almost felt as if it was staring back, then closed the door. Now unsettled, but not completely startled. A couple hours later, it was time for bed. By this time, my roommate had already returned. I told him about the text, but he mainly brushed it off. I never have been a great sleeper, so this experience didn't help me get into a state of rest. However, eventually, my mind drifted to sleep. This sleep did not last long. A feeling I had never felt before came over me. My eyes felt as if they were glued open, and I didn't even notice myself blinking. My body was strapped to the bed. I wasn't able to move any appendage. All I had control over were my eyes. I immediately looked to my roommate across the room, who was dead asleep. With all my might, I'm trying to scream or speak, but not even a whimper comes out. My eyes then look to the foot of the bed, and I see a sight that gripped me with fear. An imposing outline of nothing but black, so black it stood out among the rest of the darkness. There was no face, no true shape, just the vague structure of a humanoid creature that looked as if it was a void absorbing darkness and growing even blacker by the second. I moved my eyes up to try and avoid the thing, but it was so tall it was hard not to see it. Then it felt as if my chest was crushing. Looking down to the pressure on my chest, it now appeared that the thing was on top of me. It wasn't crawling over my bed, more like just levitating, closer and closer and closer, until I was forced to stare at nothing but the void before me, what I presumed to be this creature's face. There was no emotion, no noise, no nothing, just darkness. And when I think back to this, that's what churns my stomach. The lack of anything is something I had never experienced. I don't remember the thing leaving, or me falling asleep. I just woke up in the morning. Naturally, thinking my mind had just dreamt up a terrible nightmare, I was still shaken. However, when I looked to the floor of the room and saw that wood-carved creature had fallen off its shelf and rolled a solid 3 feet to the foot of my bed, I felt ill from fear. I immediately decided the events were connected. I have never suffered from sleep paralysis before or after this event. We got rid of the wooden elephant, then blessed each room of the house, and had no issues until we moved out. I truly believe this wood-carved object had something attached to it. I'm not very informed on the subject, but it was of Haitian descent. This is my only encounter of this type, so please let me know if you have informed opinions or similar stories. Hey guys and ladies, thanks for watching. Links to all my shit are down in the description. I love you guys, and I hope everybody's doing well. And that's about it. So be good to animals, even people. See ya. Nor have I seen the black-eyed boy again. Black-eyed boy.